What would you do if your entitled neighbor stole from you for 3 straight years and thought you'd never fight back? Today's story is about a simple turn of a tap that destroyed a man's entire empire of lies. Trust me, you'll want to stay to the end because this revenge is downright delicious. If you've ever dreamed of serving cold, hard justice to someone who thought they could walk all over you, hit that like button right now, subscribe, and buckle up. This is one of the most satisfying payback stories you'll ever hear. I never thought buying my first house would turn into a revenge saga. But here I was, standing in the middle of my fixer-upper, paint still peeling from the walls, wondering if I'd made the worst decision of my life. The house had been abandoned for nearly 3 years, left in mid-renovation by family friends who had to leave the country in a hurry. They were desperate for cash, and I got it for a steal. A great deal on paper, right in the heart of my country's busy capital. But the moment I stepped onto that property, I felt it in my gut. Something was off. There was no proper lock on the main door, just a flimsy padlock. No gate, no protection, nothing to keep strangers out. And strangers did come. On my first day, there was a random motorcycle just parked in my garage, as if this was still a public parking lot. I moved it out to the street that same day and had a new gate installed before nightfall. A man came hammering at my new gate, furious, demanding to get his bike back. I ignored him, watched him from the window as he paced and cursed, until he finally gave up and wheeled his precious bike away. That was the first taste of my new neighbors. This neighborhood had treated my house like a free-for-all ever since it stood empty. People parked wherever they wanted, came and went as they pleased, blocking my gate until I put up a giant "No parking" sign. For a while, things quieted down, but peace never lasts, does it? One night, after a long day of scraping old paint and fixing pipes, I jumped in the shower. That's when I noticed something strange. The water pressure, it was off. We're talking barely a trickle where there used to be a solid stream. At the same time, I heard the faint rumble of a water pump next door. Next door was an aging man with a sour face, a house stacked 3 stories tall. He lived on the first floor and rented out the other 2 to tenants. The previous owners had warned me about him, how angry he was about them selling the place. I should have listened harder. He'd grumbled about the sale, about outsiders coming in, about how things used to be. But I'm 6 feet tall, I've got 3 dogs, and I'm not easily intimidated. So I ignored the warnings. But that night, hearing that water pump fire up while mine sputtered, a dark thought crossed my mind. Was he stealing my water? I tested the theory, waited until his pump switched off, then opened my taps. Just like that, my pressure came back. It was too perfect to be a coincidence. The water bills at the house had always been suspiciously high, even while abandoned, and everyone had blamed old leaks. But no one had ever looked closer. Turns out, somewhere in those 3 years, this entitled old man had decided to waltz into a house that didn't even belong to him anymore and siphon water off my supply line. Every time I pictured him filling his tanks off my water, a fist clenched in my gut. Not because water was expensive, it wasn't. Even washing my dogs, the car, and watering my small garden only cost me $5 a month. But principle? That was priceless. The way he'd decided he deserved free water, that he could keep taking year after year with no consequences. It boiled my blood. So I decided enough was enough. But I didn't want to break into his place. I didn't want a fist fight. No, I wanted to outsmart him, to teach him a lesson so perfect he'd never forget it. My plan was simple. I waited for a Monday for days ago. His water pump came on with its usual whir, greedily pulling what it thought was free water from my pipes. That's when I shut off my supply at the mains. No more water for him. Here's the thing about old houses in my country. Their rooftop tanks have ball valves that tell the pump to stop once the tank is full. But if the tank never fills, that valve stays open, and the pump keeps churning all night long. His aging, badly wired house was never designed for a pump running on endless overtime. The pump pulled power until the outdated fuses and half-rotted wires simply couldn't handle it anymore. At 3 a.m., I woke to hushed, panicked voices next door, then shouting, then outright screaming. The tenants were furious. In my country, Landlords must guarantee water and electricity. If they fail, tenants can report them to the police and even get them fined on the spot. By sunrise, one tenant had already packed up and left. The other was on the phone with the police. And the landlord, my entitled neighbor, was in shock, trying to salvage his melted wiring and a fried-out water pump. By the next afternoon, I found out the police had fined him $500, a massive amount where I live. He had to refund the tenant's deposits, fix the pump, fix the wiring, and basically tear out half the house to get things up to code. He couldn't do it. He was broke, retired. His only income had been those rental payments. Now, gone. By Sunday, he was moving out to live with his daughter, forced to give up the only independence he'd had left. But the cherry on top, he came knocking on my gate, wearing the fakest straight face I'd ever seen, trying to get me to confess. "Did you, turn off your water by any chance?" he asked, barely holding back the bitterness. I gave him a warm, innocent smile. "Oh yeah," I told him. "There was a leak in one of my pipes. Plumber couldn't come until the next day." He just nodded, eyes glassy, jaw twitching. He knew, and I knew he knew, but there was nothing he could do about it. In that moment, I felt this wave of calm, like the balance of the universe had snapped back into place. No fists, no threats, just a twist of a valve, and I had put an entitled old thief in his place. So let's recap. This man had stolen from me for years and thought he'd never face consequences. One night, one twist of a tap, and his entire house of cards collapsed. He lost his tenants, his income, and his pride, all because he thought he was entitled to what wasn't his. I didn't even break a sweat. That, my friends, is karma, served ice cold. You know, sometimes the universe gives you exactly what you need to teach someone a lesson without lifting a finger. I didn't need to break the law. I didn't need to shout. I just needed to turn off the tap. And that felt better than any fight ever could. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button right now. And tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen or dreamed of pulling off? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories just like this. And remember, sometimes the simplest payback is the sweetest.